Jay Clark here. Today we're going to give you some tech tips on installing a Moto Tassinari AIR4ORCE air boot. Gives the bike a lot more little hit, a little more umph there. And so we're going to start. You can see it'll replace right here. We have to take everything off to really get to it well. So we'll give you some tips on how to do that, and we'll go from there and show you how to do that. Okay, so at this point we're going to take off all the pipe, the complete pipe. So this side number plate, the complete pipe. Loosen all the subframe bolts, and we're going to take the tank off. We'll leave the shrouds on the tank. We'll take the seat and tank off, and we'll get it to that point. So you want to pull this air clip, this sensor. You pull this wire off. You want to do that before you start on the subframe. A lot of guys forget to do that, and if you pull the subframe off with that on, you'll damage the wires and kind of a mess. Okay, so we're going to start by removing the CDI box mount. Makes it a little easier to slide it off. The stock, it has Allen head bolts. We've replaced those with 8mm head bolts. Makes it a lot easier to work on. So we pull that off, and right here, as we're here, you can also see we've already blocked off the overflow for the oil overflow. So the Moto Tassinari AIR4ORCE doesn't have an inlet for this. So you'll need to get some type of system. I already have the hose on here, coming off the valve cover, and it wraps around and outlets out below the engine. So if you don't have this already done, you're going to need to buy that. Applied and also Tokyo Mod both sell kits to do that with the hose coming out. So you can contact either of those companies to do that. And then the new boot doesn't even have an outlet to even do that. So you'll need to do that also. We're going to skip that step since we already have it done. Okay, so we're going to start by taking off the shock. You don't have to take off the shock to do this. I just find it's way easier and quicker than fighting it. So I'm going to pick up on the rear. He's going to pull the top. You have to take the top shock mount off first. So top shock mount's out. Now we can take out the bottom one. So at this point, we can pull the shock out. As I'll hold this over. So you pull the shock on out just like so. Set that on the bench. And now we're connected, and we're going to go ahead and undo the air boot right now. And then we'll have the entire airbox on the bench. And when it's on the bench, we will install the AIR4ORCE. We're going to start by removing the stock air boot, just with a clamp, real simple deal. Just to break it loose. It's got a little seal going. Once you kind of broken the seal, it'll come right off. I want to make sure we keep it all clean right here, and we don't get any dirt inside. See, we already have a clean air filter in there, all ready to go. So here's the stock air boot. As you can see, the stock Honda already has a velocity stack. Some of the bikes don't have this, and it makes a bigger difference in those bikes. This one's about the equivalent of stock here. The short one is the one we're going to run. It actually goes like that. So we're going to put that into the AIR4ORCE, and that's what we'll be using. Okay, so we're going to install the boot right back on. And at this point, it's really an easy process. It's just getting the airbox off and on the bike that takes a lot of time. And so if you're at average strength or so, you can pop this thing right on. There's a mark right here. We want to line up those two marks on the boot and then on the stock airbox, and so we know we're straight. And then we can tighten it back up. So we put on the other clamp for the back of the throttle body. And as you can see right here, there's a little rubber indentation that needs to go in that hole on the clamp. So you got that in there. Now we're ready to reinstall this on the bike. So here we're just going to clean out, just make sure there's nothing hanging in the throttle body, any residue or anything. And as you can see, there's not a lot of room to get that with all the wiring and stuff in our way here. So that's why I like to have the shock off. We put a little lube on the boot, and we can get it on there nice and easy. So we use just a hair bit of chain lube. Learned this from a guy at Injectioneering. Little tip. Not very much, just a little bit, because it stays wet for a bit and dries up tacky. A little bit helps it slide right on. and one guy can usually get it on. It's on. And so his boot's on. Tighten it up. So you get the boot all the way tight, and that way you can then install the shock. So by taking the shock off, it just saves a lot of hassle. So now we can pivot this around while we install the shock back in the bike. So now to install the shock, just kind of lightly pull the subframe out of the way. You don't want to pull too far, you want to keep the boot on. You have to do the lower shock bolt first, or you won't be able to reach. You won't be able to reach it once you put the top one in. So you got to put the lower end one in first, put the nut on, and go ahead and tighten the nut. While you got someone holding the rear wheel for you, makes it easy. You can do it by yourself, but just a little bit harder. Just good and tight on there. So now we're reinstalling the top shock mount bolt. Pretty simple deal, and then put the nut back on. So we'll tighten that up. The next thing we'll do is install the CDI back on. Put the bolts back in, just start one side and start the other side. Then you can tighten them both. Now we're going to put all of our subframe bolts back in. Plug back in the air sensor. You'll feel it clip in. It makes a loud noise. It's secure. So we've got the plug in. All that's left to do is put the side number plates on, the rest of the exhaust, fuel tank, and if you can't get those things, you probably shouldn't attempt this project. So that's all there is to installing an AIR4ORCE air boot, and you get some good power gains and pretty simple deal. So good luck, and we'll see you out the track.